You guys, look! Look! There's a paw print here. Oh, look! Look, there's fur too! Okay, let me take a sample of this. You guys go in.
Look, there's blood! We could totally bring this back to the lab and type it. Look, there's so much blood. Look, there's blood too. Ugh. Oh my gosh, look, antibiotics. Amoxicillin. Isn't that for ear infections? I think so. Let's swab the headphones.
Okay.
So who could have done this? It must have been a teacher, right? Because he's so clever and everything.
Well, yeah.
I know the math department all hates Alex. You know, Miss McNeil, Miss McGowan, Mr. Doma.
Well, no, I saw Michaela arguing with her.
Really?
Yeah. Because she didn't vote for her for prefect.
No.
Do you remember who else?
Mr.
What? Let me understand this first. First, you dropped American history, which we agreed you were taking because it's my course.
Then, we recovered from that because you were decided to take world history, and now you're telling me you're not taking world history? And not only are you not taking world history, you turned it down to take politics with Mr. Rose? I have nothing that I can say to that anymore. We're done.
Tuck your shirt in, come on.
Sorry. It's alright.
Come here for prefect. Oh my god, no, I completely forgot.
What? You didn't vote for your best friend for prefect?
No. Alex, I can't believe you ditched my class. Get out of here. There, Central Adam.
What? I'm not mean!
Oh my god, you know, Mr. Reynolds, I really just don't get his jokes. Like, why did he thinks he's so funny? What is this?
You don't get my jokes.
Okay, so I analyzed the paw print that we found at the scene of the crime. First of all, I can clearly tell that this paw print belongs to a dog. Second of all, I can clearly tell that this dog also has claws. Now, I also analyzed the first sample that I found, and clearly the dog that had the fur, or at least lost the fur, has a long coat. Moreover, that coat is colored tan with brown or black highlights. So now, given this information, I created a complex dichotomous key to, a comprehensive dichotomous key to organize the list of suspects and their dogs. Now, key. So, I measured the paw print size. It was 5 centimeters by 3 centimeters. So which of these dogs had paw print sizes that matched these dimensions? The only one that didn't match the dimensions was Miss McNeil's Swiss Mountain Dog. So she's out. On to my next question. Which of the dogs have claws? The only one that didn't have claws was Mr. Dean's Bulldog. Now, on to the fur. Which of the remaining dogs had long fur? In essence, measuring 3.5 centimeters, which is what I measured at the crime scene. The only dog that didn't have that length of fur was Mr. Dean's Chihuahua. For my final question, also relating to the fur, which of the remaining dogs have tan fur with brown and black highlights? The only one that didn't have that color fur was Miss McNeil's Westie, which has pure white fur.
Welcome to the backup lab. So today we're going to be analyzing the blood we took from the crime scene. So as you can see, I've liquefied the blood and put it onto 2 slides, With one of the slides, we're going to react it with anti-A. Now, if the person has antigen A on the surface of his or her red blood cells, then the blood will react with the anti-A and it will make a clump. The same thing would happen with anti-B. If the person has antigen B on the surface of his or her red blood cells, then it would also make a clump with the anti-B. So as you can see, the blood clotted with both the anti-A and anti-B. This means that the person has type AB blood. It also means that the person has both A and B antigens on the surface of his or her red blood cells and no anti-A or anti-B antibodies in the person's blood. This also confirms the fact that this is indeed the blood of the culprit, as Alex has type O blood because she was typed in class. How am I gonna find the blood types of the suspects?
No, you've got to be kidding me. No chewing gum in the school.
Okay, class, another exciting day of physics. You, stop laughing. Okay, let's get this projector. Oh, damn. Ow!
Stuff I go through for physics class. Look at this. Alright, hopefully I survive.
Hi, Mr. Casinas. Could you staple this for me, please? Hi, Miss McGowan. Can you
Hi,
test-
Geek.
I'm just gonna help you stop the bleeding there. Yeah. Okay.
McGowan!
After typing all the suspects' blood, I have concluded that Miss McGowan and Mr. Nero can be crossed off the list, because Miss McGowan had no clots in her blood, meaning that she has type O blood, and Mr. Nero had only anti-A clotted, meaning that he has type A blood. So when I saw that there was a lot of blood on site, my first thought was maybe the person doesn't have efficient clotting factors. Now, we all know that platelets are what causes blood to clot when we cut ourselves by accident or something like that. So I assumed that platelet levels were low, so we did some tests on that. There are many tests available to test for the amount of platelets. For example, I decided to use the partial thromboplastin, or also known as PTT. In a nutshell, this checks for low levels of blood clotting factors. Also, I decided to do a platelet count and determine if it was a low number. After the tests, I've concluded that the culprit is a hemophiliac. After repeating the tests for the suspects, I have concluded that Will and Mr. Reynolds are not the culprits because they do not have hemophilia.
So how are we going to cultivate the bacteria?
So first, you need to pour the egg yolk into the dish. So you wait for the egg yolk to dry and you smear the bacteria on top for it to cultivate.
And then we'll check back in a few days.
Sounds like a plan.
So now that the bacteria has cultivated, what are we going to do?
We're going to put the antibiotic amoxicillin onto the bacteria and see if it's resistant.
Oh my god, guys.
So we'll check back in a few days.
Okay.
A few days later, again.
So this is what the bacteria looks like.
A few days later, again.
Here is what Detective Cherry came up with.
So I've swapped Mr. Gazinus's, Mrs. Dory's, Mr. Doma, and Michaela's ears, and here's what I came up with. Mr. Doma and Michaela are not resistant to the amoxicillin, so we can eliminate those. So now we only have Mr. Story and Mr. Gazinus left as the suspect. Yeah.
7, go.
As part of the evidence for this investigation, I collected, when Mr. Casinas and Mr. Story weren't looking, plant specimens that I found on their jackets. Now, I figured because the crime took place in a forested area, one of the plant specimens must be from the crime scene. So, first of all, I noticed that the plants in the crime scene were actually vascular, seed-bearing, dicotyledon angiosperms. Here's the plant specimen that I collected from Mr. Cassinas' jacket. Clearly, the veins run parallel to each other, indicating that this plant is a monocotyledon. Monocotyledons as well, what distinguishes them from dicotyledons is the fact that they only have one cotyledon, and they also have a fibrous root system. Now, it's interesting to note that the only monocotyledons that were near the area was the grass that surrounded the crime scene, but wasn't actually in the crime scene. Now, here's the plant specimen that I collected from Mr. Story's jacket. Clearly, this plant is a dicotyledon because the veins are splayed out from each other. And also, as I mentioned before, the plants in the crime scene were dicotyledons. And further, dicotyledons have a taproot system, much like this bean plant. Clearly, this is a taprous root system. So, the specimen found on Mr. Story's jacket was a dicotyledon plant, whereas the specimen found on Mr. Cassinas' jacket was a monocotyledon plant. And the plants at the crime scene were all dicotyledons. What could this mean?